U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton offers a forceful defense at the congressional Benghazi hearing. As Tanzania prepares to go to the polls, a National Committee executive member outlines what's at stake. And in sports, Ethiopian runners are ready for the New York City Marathon. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello, I'm Lenore Moudou. This is Africa 54. We'll have those stories in a moment, but first, a suicide bombing attack at a mosque in northeastern Nigeria has killed at least 10 people and wounded 11 others, according to hospital sources. The attack in the Borno state capital of Maiduguri came during a dawn prayer session. No one has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but Abdul Qadir Ibrahim, spokesman of the National Relief Agency, blamed the jihadi movement, which has been trying to carve out a state in the northeast Nigeria since 2009. Despite being grilled for 11 hours, U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton gave a forceful defense of her handling of the 2012 terrorist attacks on the U.S. mission in Benghazi, Libya. Clinton's appearance Thursday before the House Select Committee on the Benghazi attacks came at a key point in her campaign for the White House. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone has more from Washington.
High drama on Capitol Hill as Hillary Clinton made a crucial appearance before Congress, possibly a pivotal moment in her quest to become the next president. Clinton was questioned for hours about the 2012 attacks in Benghazi that took the lives of 4 Americans, including her friend, Ambassador Chris Stevens.
You know, I would imagine I've thought more about what happened than all of you put together. I've lost more sleep than all of you put together. I have been racking my brain about what more could have been done or should have been done.
Republican Jim Jordan pressed Clinton about some of the early shifting accounts from the State Department about what was behind the attacks.
Americans can live with the fact that good people sometimes give their lives for this country. They don't like it. They mourn for those families. They pray for those families. But they can live with it. But what they can't take, what they can't live with, is when their government's not square with them.
I think the insinuations that you are making do a grave disservice to the hard work that people in the State Department, the intelligence community, the Defense Department, the White House did during the course of some very confusing and difficult days.
Republican Lynn Westmoreland said Clinton ignored previous threats to the U.S. mission in Benghazi.
It's not a matter if you knew about them. It's a matter of what you did about them. And to us, the answer to that is nothing.
We were certainly aware that the situation across Libya was becoming more dangerous and that there were particular concerns about eastern Libya.
Clinton said the requests for additional security never reached her and were handled by security experts. Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy defended the probe.
Madam Secretary, I understand there are people, frankly, in both parties who have suggested that this investigation is about you. Let me assure you it is not, and let me assure you why it is not. This investigation is about 4 people who were killed representing our country on foreign soil.
But recent Republican comments that the probe is targeting Clinton show its bias, said Democrat Elijah Cummings.
What is impossible is for any reasonable person to continue denying that Republicans are squandering millions of taxpayer dollars on this abusive effort to derail Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign.
The hearing was not without partisan bickering.
But let the world see it.
Clinton's appearance came the day after Vice President Joe Biden decided against a presidential bid next year, leaving Clinton the clear Democratic frontrunner. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
South Africa President Jacob Zuma has reversed the course and decided not to hike fee increases for university students next year. Student protests rocked the nation for more than a week, but on Friday, student leaders and academics met with the president to discuss the matter. For more details on this latest development, VOA's Anita Powell joins us live via Skype from Johannesburg. Anita, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lenore.
So what is the latest on this story?
So as you've heard, President Jacob Zuma today announced there will be a 0% fee increase at universities for the year 2016. And that was during a meeting he had with student leaders and academics.
So tell us about this issue. When we look at the big picture, it is not just, there's much more than just university fees, right?
Right. So the students are protesting over university fees, but this issue transcends just the fees. This has really become a political issue. A lot of these students, they belong to the generation in South Africa called born frees, who are people born after the end of apartheid. So their parents, for the most part, may have supported the ANC struggle for equality. And these students have heard all of their lives the ANC promising equality and opportunity, and they say they're not seeing it and they're fed up. So this is part of a much larger debate in South Africa. And what's really important to remember here is this could represent a real political challenge to the ANC during next year's local elections. And it's really important to remember that it's not just these students who vote.
Yeah,
it's their parents too.
Sure, sure. Now, tell us about how this has played out politically among the opposition. Any reactions, really?
So every political party in South Africa has tried to get a piece of this story. And what's kind of comical and refreshing is that the student groups have had none of it. They've been pretty even-handed in that, too. They wouldn't allow the ANC Secretary General to even speak at yesterday's rally. This morning, they kicked out the Communist Party and the ANC Youth League from discussions with the president. And they've also kicked out the representative from the official opposition, the DA, when he tried to attend a protest. The students are trying to say basically two things. This is not a political issue, but also they're saying we are in charge here.
Okay, Anita, thank you so much for joining us. And that was VOA's Anita Powell reporting live via Skype from Johannesburg. Now, Tanzania will hold presidential elections this Sunday. VOA's Vincent Makori interviewed January Yusuf Makamba, National Executive Committee member and Deputy Minister of Communications, Science and Technology.
You see, this is the problem, because we have never comprehended the idea of losing. Yeah? So, I don't know. Because, look, this does not mean an arrogance, but we have measured carefully our chances since the beginning. Even, you see, people do not know, for people who know how CCM works, its victories are never a surprise. We picked this particular candidate because we knew this election needed this particular candidate. So we plotted our victory way before everybody started thinking about this election. Because of the past that the party has on the ground in the country, and you know, so you know, we do our research. You know, we know our chances. We know where we need to work. So you know, for us who are part of the campaign, you know, it never occurred.
So you don't think anybody's writing a concession speech? Yeah?
Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. But see, we are keen to, because people sometimes it's lost in people that this is only the 5th election. So we are relatively a young democracy, and each election cycle entrenches the democratic practice. So you know, we as a governing party that midwifed multipartyism in Tanzania, we want to see an environment where, you know, people can absolutely have a choice for an alternative. But our job as CCM is not to build an alternative. You know, as government, we create an environment where people have chance to succeed in the political arena. And our opponents have not been able to take, those environment that we've created.
Tanzania is now left with one more full day before what many consider a possible historic election. Excitement is intensifying, but many are wondering about the Electoral Commission's preparedness. The Africa 54's Vincent Makori spoke with retired Justice Damian Lubuva, the chairman of Tanzania's National Electoral Commission.
So many people are excited and so on and so on. So there is a lot of competition, and in that way, the Electoral Commission has a lot of challenges to face. And well, nonetheless, we are prepared from the time we started the registration of voters and a new system of the biometric voter registration. It was quite a mammoth task, but nevertheless, we finished with it, registering about 22.7 million people. And now we started arrangements. We are virtually ready to conduct the election on Sunday, 25th. Yes, as of now, we have provided all the necessary equipment and material to all the regions, districts, constituencies. If there is any shortfall, they are making indication, but generally we have done so, yes, both on the mainland and Zanzibar as well.
We will have more about the elections in Tanzania next week from Vincent Makori, who is reporting from Dar es Salaam. Now, the U.S. Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region of Africa, Thomas Perriello, is calling for an immediate internationally mediated dialogue to help resolve the political and humanitarian crisis in Burundi. VOA's Edward Rima reports.
The situation in Burundi is incredibly fragile as a political crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and a security crisis. We see escalating violence each night in certain neighborhoods of Bujumbura, both against and by police officers and state security forces. And we all know if left alone, this is going to get even worse. So we have to begin immediately an internationally mediated, inclusive dialogue that gives us a peaceful solution out of this so that the people of Burundi can get back on the path of progress that they'd been on for 15 years.
The Burundian government officials insist that they're ready to dialogue, but this dialogue should be inter-Burundi dialogue mediated by Burundians themselves. What do you say?
Well, all forms of dialogue are valuable, and that can certainly be part of the process, but the Burundian people really do not want war, and as a practical matter, they want a dialogue that has a chance of bringing peace to their country, and everybody agrees, including the African Union in a very strong statement this weekend, that that has to be internationally mediated to make sure all stakeholders feel safe, feel like it's a fair platform, and all issues can be discussed.
What has been the U.S. role in as far as enforcing and ensuring that this internationally mediated dialogue is in place?
Well, you know, as I said to many of the Burundian government officials when I was there, you know, what we've tried to do is give our best advice. And we believe that if that advice had been taken a year ago, we would be talking about targeted investments, not targeted sanctions in Burundi. We would be talking about Burundi as a model, not as a cautionary tale. So we stand ready to support anyone from the East African community or the African Union who is ready to move forward with a dialogue that has a chance of success. And this is a practical issue, not an ideological issue. What is it that creates a forum that could actually bring this crisis to a resolution? And whether that's in Kampala or in Addis, we will support the AU and the EAC in finding a solution to this crisis.
The EU has imposed sanctions on various Burundian officials. The African Union has threatened to impose sanctions to people who are involved in escalating violence. The US previously also said that it will be imposing visa sanctions. What is it that the US is doing?
Well, we've already eliminated a number of forms of aid, but we want to still find ways that we can support the people of Burundi while holding accountable those in the government and the opposition who are resorting to violence and other tactics that are across, the bounds of what's allowed. And in that sense, we strongly support the European Union and the African Union in pursuing targeted sanctions, Article 96 measures, and other things. The goal here is to get the talks started and to find a resolution to those talks, and that's what the people of Burundi deserve. And we will stand in partnership and consider all of our policy options as we try to support that result.
Some critics have said that the East African community is not credible enough to mediate the talks because the bloc itself is divided on what is happening in Burundi.
Well, we certainly support in general the principle of subsidiarity, that we should go towards the local and regional body, but where those regional bodies cannot solve the problem, either from capacity or from being too close to the situation, you can see that leadership elevated to an African Union level. You certainly saw an incredibly strong communique from the African Union this weekend, but everybody's preference would be for the East African community to lead this effort.
We turn now to the presidential elections in Côte d'Ivoire, scheduled for Sunday. Joining us in the studio for more on the subject is political analyst and university professor, Dr. Nyaka Lagoke. Mr. Lagoke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So the final list of candidates was 10 people. Now we are down to 7. One just withdrew as we spoke. Now, tell me about the reasons that they are talking about withdrawing. I think one of the reasons was about free and fair elections, that the elections were not going to be free and fair. That's one of the complaints they had. What can you tell us?
Yeah, no, the election is, Mr. Ouattara is looking for some credible and transparent election, but of course, this election cannot be credible because, just to give you an example, Mr. Bani, the former governor of the West African Central Bank, who just decided to, to renounce to his presidential bid, does not have even one representative in the Electoral Commission. And then because of the way the commission was created, it is formed by the representatives of political parties. He's an independent candidate.
Isn't it one of the reasons maybe because he came in late?
Yes, but that's why the country or the Electoral Commission had to adjust in order to meet the needs of those who are running as independent candidates.
So when we think about this, though, some people will say this is the old trick in the book by opposition leaders very often in elections. When they feel like they will not win, they talk about elections being rigged and things like that. What do you respond?
In the case of Ivory Coast, people may think that the elections are going to be peaceful, but my expression is that the elections are going to be pacified, because for 5 years, Mr. Ouattara failed in order to build national reconciliation. Thousands of Ivorians are in exile, hundreds are in prison. Gbagbo has been sent to the ICC, and then the people who believe that there is the justice victor, the victor justice, they think that Mr. Ouattara should have met their needs, and he did not do that. And in order to show the dissenting views, they decided not to be part of a process whose result is going to be the victory of Mr. Ouattara. So it's not about them knowing that they're going to lose, but it is because the process was not fair.
But a few days before the elections, to withdraw from the whole process, what does it tell us in terms of the way the expectations of President Ouattara was not met? When you talk about one-sided justice, this process was there for these years, and they decided to enroll, though.
Yes, but for 5 years, that's the point. Mr. Ouattara came after an electoral stalemate in 2010-11, and we know the country was divided into two by a rebellion that he brought to the country. So we were hoping to see Mr. Ouattara engaging the entire nation to build unity and reconciliation. He may build a few bridges and a few roads, but this is not the development, and the Ivory Coast needs to, it's a broken nation, and he could not heal, and he did not do what was necessary to build a real peaceful, united nation in Ivory Coast. That's the situation. Now, that he thought that the most important thing for him was to win an election. Of course he's going to win the election, and the wounds are going to still be there and after the election, and I think that it is a ticking bomb in Ivory Coast. People have to be ready for what may happen after the election.
Quickly, what about Mr. Ouattara's record, which is said to be pretty good, and IMF is forecasting a GDP growth of 8.4%, and the ADB, the FDB came back, returned to Côte d'Ivoire. Are there some indications that something good is being done?
No, this is a very important question. Yes, as an Ivorian, I am happy that the African Development Bank returned to Ivory Coast. I am glad that Ivory Coast debt was cancelled, most of it. I am also glad that Mr. Ouattara built the third bridge in Ivory Coast, even though the condition could have been better. But this is not development. Real development, it is when the private sector is thriving and the economy is in the hands of the national. In the case of Ivory Coast, this is not what is happening. Okay. So the real challenge is not about bridge, it is about the nation, and Mr. Ouattara failed on that front.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Lagoke. We hope to have you back for more. And Dr. Nyaka Lagoke is a political analyst and university professor here in the United States. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Ethiopian runners prepare for the New York City Marathon. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In South Africa, President Jacob Zuma ruled out fee increases for universities next year after a week of nationwide student protests. In Tanzania, politicians flout government ban on witchcraft, leading up to one of the tightest elections in the country's history.
Les camps de réfugiés.
In Rwanda, Foreign Affairs Minister Louise Mushikiwabo dismisses accusations from Burundi that her country is not doing enough to support its neighbor. Finally, in Ivory Coast, President Alassane Ouattara faces 7 contenders in Sunday's key vote in the presidential election. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here is what's trending. Apple says 6.5 million people are now paying for its streaming music service. Speaking at a tech conference organized by the Wall Street Journal, Apple CEO Tim Cook said an additional 8.5 million people are participating in a free trial of Apple Music. Apple launched the service in June with a free 3-month trial period. After that period, users pay $9.99 a month for individual subscriptions. Despite a strong start, it still falls far shy of rival Spotify's 20 million paid subscribers. Next up, call it peace through hummus. When the manager of a hummus restaurant in central Israel felt that a recent escalation in violence was tearing Jews and Arabs apart, he came up with his own version of a peace initiative, or rather a piece of pita initiative. He decided to publish a social media post in which his restaurant offered 50% off any hummus dish served to a table where Jews and Arabs sat and dined together. The post went viral. We'll see if the Peace Through Hummus initiative works. And finally, just when we thought we'd seen it all in a smartphone, well, Sharp Corporation introduces RoboHan, a robot smartphone that gets smarter the more you use it. RoboHan is programmed to learn from interacting, so each time you use it, well, it stores data in its cloud system. It also uses facial recognition to tell you to smile for pictures while being your personal assistant, stereo, and image projector. It can even hail you a cab. The gadget has a 2-inch touch screen on its back to make calls, send texts, and surf the web. It won't fit in your pocket, though, so if you plan to bring this guy anywhere, you'll have to wear him around your neck or place him in a carry-all, and that's what's trending today. It's time for our Friday Sports Report, and we welcome back Sonny Young, fresh from a trip to the continent, wearing his dashiki. Hello, Sonny.
Hello, Lenore, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Only 4 teams are still in contention for the Rugby World Cup trophy, and one of them is the 2-time champion Springboks of South Africa. The Springboks are warming up for a big semi-final this weekend against the defending champion All Blacks of New Zealand at Twickenham Stadium in London. South Africa is coming off a tough 23-19 victory over Wales in the quarterfinals, while New Zealand trounced France 62-13. South Africa's head coach Heineke Meyer says the Springboks will have to produce their best ever performance to beat the All Blacks. Meyer adds that there is great mutual respect between the Springboks and the All Blacks, two of the heavyweights in world rugby. In the second semifinal, also at Twickenham, Argentina will play Australia. The winners of the two matches will meet in the Rugby World Cup final October 31st at Twickenham. In African athletics, long-distance runners from neighboring Kenya and Ethiopia are once again expected to challenge for titles in the New York City Marathon November 1st. VOA's Bernard Schussman reports the Ethiopians have extra motivation to win this year in New York.
This is what the start of the race looked like last year. And the largest marathon in the world will look just about the same this year. More than 50,000 runners are expected. Several hundred are outstanding world-class athletes.
The classic Ethiopian sitting on the Kenyan.
In the 2014 marathon, both the men's and women's titles went to Kenyan runners. Now, Ethiopians believe it's their turn. This year, the Ethiopians are looking for their first win since 2010. These 5 Ethiopian men are members of New York's West Side Runners Club. When they're in New York, they train and run with West Side Club members and its president, Bill Staub.
Most of the ones we have in the United States are from the Oromo section of Ethiopia, which is farming in villages. They have to go very long distances to go to school, and they run. And also, the sport of running in Ethiopia is extremely prominent.
These scenes are of double Olympic marathon champion and the most famous barefoot marathon runner in Ethiopian history, Abibi Bikila, on the roads of Rome as he won his 1960 gold medal. He is the hero of all Ethiopian runners, including 27-year-old world-class competitor Deriba Bekogi.
I was dreaming to run this race, but still, I'm not like a good performance for this race. But I will try to run my personal best.
Deriba just won a 10-kilometer race. These young Ethiopians are in their 20s and 30s. They train twice a day, early in the morning and late afternoon, for approximately 3 months leading up to the marathon. Most of them live together and train together while in the United States. And according to Bill Staub, part of his job is to also teach these young men about life in America while offering them the opportunity to run in a race which they can excel. Bernard Schussman, VOA News, New York.
Thanks, Bernard. I'm Sonny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Lenore?
Thank you, Sonny. It's so good to have you back. Well, be sure to watch the sunny side of sports every Monday and Friday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa, between 300 and 600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On.
VOA.
qubanaha VOA waxaan ku soo gudbinnaa qubanayaal goosgoos oo xiiso badan oo ku saabsan arrimaha Soomaaliya, Mareykanka iyo caalamkaba.
haddaba qubanaha VOA-da kala soco website-keena voasomali.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report.
I'm Mil Arcega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents.
A roundup of the world's top stories.
Here's a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.